Hi, this is Ellie Hassenfeld, co-founder of GiveWell. GiveWell's mission is to find outstanding giving opportunities and publish the full details of our analysis to help donors decide where to give. I'm going to talk about the process we used to find our top charities in 2011 and go into more detail about those top 2 charities. Keep in mind that this is just an overview. All the details for everything I'm going to talk about are available on our website, and if there's anything that you can't find but are looking for, please just let us know. We start our research process with hundreds of organizations and filter through them to find the best ones. Then we subject the most promising ones to heavy scrutiny. We filter organizations by flagging and contacting the ones that appear most promising to us. This year, we contacted about 100 organizations for further questions. We'll ask charities basic questions about their activities, how they know whether their activities are working, and importantly, how they'd use additional donations. We complete a public review page for each charity we contact. Of the 100 we contacted, 15 were promising enough that we engaged in extensive back and forth trying to get all of our questions answered. And we ended up at the end of the year with 8 organizations we consider standout. Of these, 2 are our top-rated organizations, the Against Malaria Foundation, or AMF, and the Schistosomiasis Control Initiative, or SCI. We visited both AMF and SCI in Africa this past October before giving them our top rating. AMF works on malaria, and it's a deadly disease. Malaria kills over 1 million children each year. It also generally contributes to poverty by causing people to get sick, even if they don't die. Malaria is primarily a problem in sub-Saharan Africa. AMF provides insecticide-treated nets that protect against mosquitoes that transmit malaria. AMF buys nets and ships them to organizations, which then distribute the nets in the field to the people who need them. There have been numerous randomized controlled trials, which are the most rigorous type of assessment, and it's the one that we use to test new medical drugs here in the US, showing that nets prevent deaths from malaria. Now, there are lots of organizations out there that do bed nets for malaria. AMF caught our eye with their commitment to transparency. AMF publishes on their website details about each net distribution, where it's located, and pictures of the nets being handed out. Then a few months later, AMF receives post-distribution reports about whether people are actually using the nets. We haven't seen any other net organization being this transparent and accountable. It costs a little bit less than $5 to actually buy a net, and if you include all costs like delivery costs and overhead, you can add about another $1 to that cost. Now, not everyone who gets a net would have died, so overall we estimate that a life is saved for under $2,000 a piece in terms of total money spent. Now, it's very hard to estimate cost per life saved because you have to make a lot of assumptions, but that's our best estimate. SCI is our second-ranked charity. It focuses on deworming because across Africa there are hundreds of millions of people infected with worms. One of these infections is called schistosomiasis. Now, these infections rarely kill or even hospitalize people, so a lot of people don't even know that they have the infections. But it's very cheap to treat the infections. Once a year or so, you give people a pill that kills the worms. SCI collects data on worm infections both before they go in and after the program, and you can see that in most cases, infection rates fall dramatically. This is definitely some of the best evidence of effectiveness we've ever seen from a charity in terms of really showing that they caused a drop in a disease. So the big question that people have about deworming is, what impact does worms have on quality of life? Unfortunately, this is not an easy question to answer. We've worked really hard to understand all the literature out there on what worms do to you and what deworming can help you with, and the bottom line is it's really hard to say. The best evidence seems to indicate that having worms causes some short-term, non-life-threatening conditions, such as anemia in some cases. There's also some evidence that worms contribute to developmental deficits later in life. So the idea is that if you're deworming children, you're helping their physical development and their cognitive development, and when they get older, they'll be stronger and maybe better educated and able to earn more and be more productive. Now, there's issues with the evidence that leads to these conclusions, but it definitely suggests that there's a possibility that there are significant developmental effects. The bottom line is that deworming is very cheap, and if there's even a possibility of helping people in that kind of lasting, significant way, it makes deworming a pretty good deal for a donor. Now, I wish I could give you a number like $2,000 per life saved for deworming, but because the effects are subtle, they're really hard to quantify. It costs about $5 to deworm a child throughout the period of their life when they're most susceptible to worms. When we try to put deworming in the same terms as nets and come up with a cost per equivalent life saved metric, our best estimate, and again, this is rough, but it's our best estimate, is that deworming costs $2,000 to $4,000 per equivalent life saved. So the question a lot of donors have is, well, how do you choose between two outstanding organizations? We think SCI has the edge on its organizational track record. It has demonstrated multiple times that its work leads to a reduction in disease rates. On the other hand, counterbalancing that, we think AMF has more of what we call upside. There's more of a chance that your donation will do a really huge amount of good, an outsized amount of good, partly because AMF is smaller and earlier in their development. AMF also has an advantage on what we call intangibles, and we recognize this is really subjective, but we've first had an easier time communicating and getting our question answered by AMF. We're also a little more confident in the organization as a whole. We're also more confident in the research on malaria in general by the academics working on the problem than we are on the research on deworming. Finally, we think you accomplish more good per dollar when you give to AMF. It's very hard to compare nets with deworming in terms of bang for the buck, because nets are more expensive, but they also prevent deaths. Our best estimates say that deworming children is slightly less cost effective than giving out nets, but deworming adults is much less cost effective because you don't have the possibility of developmental benefits later in life. We've worked hard to understand how SCI would use additional dollars, and it's a mix between children and adults. And overall, we think AMF comes out on top in terms of good accomplished per dollar. Both AMF and SCI are outstanding organizations. We feel great about both, and you should feel great about giving to both. To donate, go to the links below. It's important to us to track donations made due to our research. So if you give directly to either charity, please let us know so we can include it in our tracking. If you have any questions, just email us at info@givewell.org. You can also follow our blog at blog.givewell.org and comment there. Thanks so much.